Hey guys, welcome to part 6 of Lrn2Tank. This will actually be the last part of the series. And today I am going completely unscripted to discuss with you the wonders that is the user interface or UI, add-ons that you may be interested in, as well as setting up macros and getting it all put together so that you can function with some specific emphasis on power auras and that quote-unquote mystical circle add-on that I enjoy using in a lot of my videos. So without further ado, here I am at my character selection screen, and first thing I'm going to show you are just a list of some of the add-ons that I use. Excuse me. So you can ignore some of these because they don't necessarily have to do with tanking. They are more for auction house manipulation and such. But bear with me as I go through these. So first thing, if you are a raider or you PvP or anything like that, you're going to want to make sure that you have some sort of boss mod program. I in particular use DBM. I used to use DXE, Deus Ex. However, it's no longer supported. It has been replaced or supplemented by a new one called KDE, as in kitten, dog, elephant. I haven't used it, and I'm probably not going to get an opportunity to, so if you want to check that out, do so. My understanding is that, like DXE, it has a lot more excuse me, it has a lot more options, a lot more customizability, but a steep learning curve. I get a lot of questions about what interface I use, what that whole layout that I have is, and that is a Tuck UI derivative known as Elv UI. Elv is a spin-off of Tuck, Tuck being kind of the base package and Elv being a specific set of configurations. Both of these, both Tuck itself and Elv, are available from online from the same site. I think it's tuckui.org, so tukui.org, or as my husband likes to call it, Tukui. I don't know, but okay. So that's what I use is Elv UI. It has two base layouts, the DPS one and the healer. If you're tanking, then you probably will want to use the DPS. The major difference between the two is that the healer one will by default put your raid frames in the middle of the screen, whereas the DPS one sets them off to the left-hand side and also doesn't show all sorts of debuffs and things like that that you're probably not as interested in. You can have both of these loaded at the same time, but all Elv is going to do is pop up, say, hey, you have both loaded, pick one, and then it's going to turn the other one off. So, as a tank, you're going to want the DPS one. If you do any cap forming whatsoever, and if you're a decent feral tank, then you should be on many fights, S-Combo provides combo points in a more obvious and customizable location. Newer versions of S-Combo, which was developed by folks over at Tuck UI, also have things like timers. This is also an excellent utility for rogues. It will work standalone with some tweaking from what I understand, but it is based around using Tuck or a Tuck derivative. Skada is my DPS meter and threat meter of choice. You can use those separately by getting Omen, which is a threat meter, and Recount, which is a DPS healing meter, etc. I like Skada because it'll handle both of them at once. It's got a pretty low memory footprint, and it's customizable. I don't want to know about crowd control. It's not that useful in raids, so I can turn it off. I don't really care so much about the amount of damage that the enemy is doing to me. I do care about how much damage I'm taking, but I don't care how much they're doing to everybody else so much. That's for logs to figure out, so I can turn those off. RSA, or I think it's Rayleigh's Spell Announcer, is an interesting add-on that is extremely customizable that allows you to set it up so that it announces when you use special abilities. So if you want people to know that bear wall's up, as soon as you press that bear wall key, it'll say, bear wall is active for the next 12 seconds, or whatever you tell it to do. It's got a lot of triggers in order to do things like targeting. So if you miss an interrupt for some reason, they're immune. It'll say, you know, I missed my interrupt because it was immune, or something like that. LVUI has a lot of basic announces in it. The difference between, and is one of the reasons why I don't necessarily use RSA. I tend to just announce on Mumble when I'm using Bear Wall or when I'm using Bear Last Stand. But a nicer thing compared to a macro is that, for the most part, RSA will also say when the ability is over. A macro will only do things when you press it once. Sorry, I have cat aggro. Minko, shush. But RSA will allow, you know, when the 12 seconds of bear wall is over, it will allow you to say bear wall ended. So it's also customizable. You can add things to it. I've added trinket procs to it. With a little bit of Lua knowledge, it's actually pretty powerful ability. Power Auras is an excellent tool. I highly suggest that anyone that wants to really customize what they see and where they see it use Power Auras. It also has a bit of a learning curve, but there are a number of people out there who have their own Power Auras that they've put together, and they will share them in strings, and I will show you how to export and import Power Auras in a little bit. Ovale is an interesting program. My understanding is that it does what Bag Kitty, I believe it is, used to do, which is basically tell you what button to press next. Ovale is not class or spec specific. It has default layouts for every class, including healers, as well as tanks, as well as DPS. But the preloaded ones are not that great. I specifically use it for cat form. I am not a cat main spec, I am a bear main spec. So I understand the basics of catting, but I'm usually spending more time paying attention to boss debuffs, so that I know when to switch back to bear and taunt and things like that. So Ovale, pretty much without thinking, allows me, it just shows me the icon for what I should press next for the best DPS that I'm going to be able to put out. You can get special scripts for it that are certainly more up to date. The Feral Druid blog and website maintains the most recent cat priority Ovale script, and also has a bear priority Ovale script embedded in it, which isn't terrible. I personally don't like using it because in bear form because it distracts me from what I'm doing. But if you're trying to learn, you know, when the best times are to refresh your pulverize, or, oh, I have 3 abilities active, which one is really better for me to use, then Ovale can be extremely useful for that. OPie is the mystical ring circle thingy that I use. It allows you to either keybind, or for me, I actually have it on my scroll wheel click. So when I click the scroll wheel of my mouse, it pops up that little ring. And from there, you can create nested rings with things that you know, will use once in a while or even fairly often, but you don't have keybinds for. You don't want to spend a keybind on your professions, are one that I use a lot. I don't really want to have them on a bar on my screen because I'm not always using them, and pressing P to open the spell book and then selecting my profession from out of the profession window, kind of annoying. So this allows me to press a button, I get a ring, and I've used it for so long I know exactly, you know, which direction I need to move my mouse to open up my profession ring, and then you can just scroll through with your mouse wheel in order to switch between your professions. It's a great utility, so I will show you a little bit of how it works in a bit. Graph paper is not really an add-on as far as like massive utility. What it does is it allows you to line things up on your screen. If you are very particular about having balance on your screen, with making sure that your unit frame and your target's unit frame are on the same y-axis, graph paper is excellent. I highly recommend it. And that's pretty much it. I use Action Bar Saver in order to copy and paste excuse me, brain's not functioning. Copy and paste keybinds. Minko, you're distracting me. Shush. I was doing a bear hybrid and a bear, just flat out bear spec for quite a while. And I wanted to copy all of my keybinds over from spec 1 to spec 2. And Action Bar Saver allows you to do that. It also allows you to save predefined key sets. So, like recently, I've switched my second Feral spec to PvP Resto spec. So now if I switch back that set back to Feral, I can just load that one in again. It's not necessarily required for tanking, but it's certainly a good quality of life. And that's all I actually use as far as making things that I need for raiding, for tanking, for dungeoning. That's it. It's really not that big of a thing. So let's get logged in and see what we've got here. So the basic user interface is has a love-hate relationship with pretty much everyone. Either you love it or you hate it. There's a lot of extra space that it takes up, especially down on the lower bars. The right-hand side, those bars, they all get kind of kludgy in order to make, just to make sure that you have enough buttons to do all the things that you need to do. So a lot of people will opt to completely modify their entire interface like I have, or they will, sorry, give me just a sec, checking something here. Okay, just making sure that I had things working right. Sorry about that. Or they will just modify it slightly. They'll use the same base like Blizzard frames and bars, but they're going to add extra things on top of it, like power auras and DBM. So if you're going to completely redo your interface, there are a couple things to keep in mind. The first is functionality. You want all of the information that you need to see to be where you're going to be able to see it without blocking other information around you. So this area here around my character, I want to try to keep that fairly clear. I need to be able to see that fire's getting ready to land at my feet, or that I'm standing in bad stuff and things like that. But because my eye is in this area for the most part, everything along that exterior portion is prime real estate space. That is where I'm going to be able to quickly see what's going on. And as can be seen, oh cool, I'm bugged and attacking in bird form. That's actually kind of neat. Anyway, so you can see that I have, around my character, I have a number of icons that let me know what's going on. I have cooldown icons available here so that I know what abilities are ready without having to drag my vision all the way down to these bottom bars. I can see my health just in the bottom left. I can see my target's health in the bottom right. And I can see other important things that I need to see, such as the number of stacks that I have of lacerate, which is what I have over here, and so forth and so on. So this area surrounding tends to be where most people's eyes go. You can also find, important information, but not necessarily things that you need to see all the time, off to the left here. And don't be afraid to stack things up if you need. So if, like me, so DBM is pretty important, right? You want to make sure that you can see everything that's going on when a boss is using its ability. So notice that these bars will slowly creep up, if there are a lot of them, over my lacerate stacks. But you know what's the important information is that I need to see for lacerate? Is mostly the fact that I have a 3 stack. As long as I can see this big leaf right here, I'm good. That's all I really need to see, at a moment's glance, is whether or not I have a 3 stack and whether or not my pulverize buff has dropped, which is over here in the line. So sorry, let me get out of combat here. Evil spell. all of this, the raid frame, or the unit frames, the chat, the bars, the map, the buffs, and the micro menu bar, this is all Elv. All of this is Elv UI. The same thing with the brain's not functioning. This is why I script things. Same thing with your the bars that are above the enemy's heads. Those are all skinned by Elv. Skada has a built-in skin for Elv that allows you to see, you know, Skada over here on the right with a really nice drop down that makes it very easy to hide it when you want to actually read trade chat and see it when you're actually in dungeons. It also has the DBM skin, as you saw there, so it's got a lot of functionality, and pretty much it will replace everything that you need. Ovale is this right here, this strange contrapulation. So the first things you're going to see are the long cooldown abilities. So this top one is Feral Charge. So I can Feral Charge because it's off. And then it tells me what things I really should be pressing. Here on the left, you'll see that it's telling me that I need to... Excuse me. Oh, we're going to Berserk here. So on the left, you can see that I have... Shred is what it's telling me to stack. I'm currently berserked, so I'm going to shred until I absolutely need to use Rake, which is right here on the right-hand side. So you can see what's coming up soon in order to make sure that you've got plenty of time in order to keep that up and going. It does, as I said, have a bear functionality, which keeps things like Berserk, Bark Skin, all of that information is listed in here. It'll tell you when to try and shout. And it will also show that second icon when there's enough rage to hit Maul. So it can be useful, but it's distracting to me. So I don't generally play with it. But I do have two little macros actually down here on the bottom right to turn it on and off. Because if I need it, I need it. And when I don't want to see it. Let's see. So all of these cool looking contrapulations that you're seeing here, this bar, all of these, the leaves over here on the side for lacerate, and this other large enclosure that I'm waiting on. These are all power auras. All of this is a power aura, or separate power auras that have been set up in order to make sure that I have all of the information I need in order to function. Let's see. DBM, of course, is fairly self-explanatory. I usually keep the long cooldown information off to the left-hand side. I can glance over there to kind of get an idea of what's coming, but if once it's getting close to time, it's going to show up here in the center, or off to the side where I can see it easily. Announcements are here. All good, right? Then there is, excuse me, there is the magical, mystical circle utility. Are you ready for it? You ready for it? Wham! All I did was click my middle mouse button. I think by default it's set to like the F key or something crazy. Can't be F. It's probably comma. But you can set it to whichever key you want, and notice that when I mouse over jewel crafting, I have all four of my pertinent professions here, so I can mouse wheel through those and it shows them to me. I have lag apparently, flasks, micro flasks that are still left over from Wrath that I haven't removed. Here's a booger in case I need to pick my nose and eat it. The flask of enhancement, I'm an alchemist, so I have that there to quickly use. Food, water, mounts. This is one of the main reasons why I got it. Mounts, you can do non-combat pets, you can do forms. I don't actually use this ring 98% of the time for forms, but it's there if I ever need it. And hearths, teleports, abilities to get around. These are all things that you don't want to go digging through your spellbook or through your inventory in order to find this stuff. but you don't really want to leave it on a bar. You know, you want things that you need fast access to right then and there. So that's what OPie is good for. So let's give OPie a look. So it's got a whole bunch of crazy settings, and I honestly don't even know how half of these work. But what you're mostly interested in, or at least for me, is that you want to have a master ring, which I believe is what it will start with. And then you want to have other rings that are part of it. So I have a feral ring that gets put into there. I have a shape-shifting ring that gets put into there. I have trade skill ring that gets put into there, and you can nest them like that. And you can choose whether it's, you know, all druids, all of your characters, only one specific character have access to that ring. And you just kind of keep going through. So trade skills has all applicable trade skills except for archaeology and fishing. Does fishing actually even have? Yeah, it doesn't even have one. But if you wanted to add something, so I have this trade skill thing, I want to add archaeology to it. Here we go. Archaeology is now in the trade skill ring. Good stuff, huh? Mounts, same way. I have all of these mounts available. The ones that are grayed out are ones that I myself don't currently have. But all of these are available to myself, to my alts. The nice thing is, if I don't have a mount available on myself, it's not going to show up on my ring. Notice I don't have a dread steed because I'm not a warlock. But, you know, on my warlock, she's got the dread steed available. And she doesn't have a tundra mammoth. So when she logs in, she sees her dread steed, but she's not going to see the tundra mammoth. So it does have a smart feature like that where it only shows you the things that you can actually use. The only place that that's not true is in relation to the Hearthstone and the Innkeeper's Daughter. The Innkeeper's Daughter is an archaeology find that actually replaces your Hearthstone. You can keep your Hearthstone too, but there's not really any point because they share the same cooldown. It basically is a Hearthstone. The thing is, even though I don't technically have a Hearthstone in my inventory, it still shows up in here because I do have the Innkeeper's Daughter. It's annoying, but it's not the end of the world. You can set specific rings for specific mouse keys. So for example, if I really just want to have, I want access to everything with one key, but I want to have, you know, another key that only brings up my trade skills. I can set it right here. All I do is click the box and tell it what key I want to set it to. You can also set default abilities so that if you don't move your mouse and you know, you open it up and you don't do anything else, it'll automatically just use your default ability that you have set. So it's very handy if, you know, you're trying to get away from Horde quite a bit. Maybe you're a PvPer and you don't really want to bind travel form, but you definitely want to be able to do it quickly. You can make that a default binding. So play around with it. It's a great utility. And getting it working right can be a little frustrating, but bear with it. I'd suggest starting small. Maybe make a master ring to start with and add a profession ring. And then add a consumable ring or a teleport moonglade and hearthstone ring. You know, just start small and add on from there as you start to figure it out. Skada is fairly simple. As you can see, it has different modes. You start at the basis with the different fights, who you're fighting against. And it keeps track of all of the older ones have names, and then the current fight doesn't have its particular name, but oh well. And you can see things like how much healing and absorption, so shields, things like that was done. How much damage was dealt, how much damage was taken, the deaths and the cause of those deaths, the number of dispels, and my personal favorite, threat. I actually have it set up in Skada to default to threat. So the bars, you can set your width and things like that. If you are using Skada with Elf, there's a little button you have to turn on in order to have it use that skin, which I very much suggest doing. It's excellent. And then in combat, you can set it to what mode you want it to always be in. So when I'm in combat, since I'm usually tanking, I want it to be in threat mode. I want to be able to see threat. So as soon as it detects that I am fighting, so here I am chilling out, DPS mode, good stuff, right? And now, well, I have a squirrel selected, but now this is the threat mode for it. And you can't get threat on a target dummy, sadly. But I can on a squirrel. Oh, did I kill it? Oh, there he is. Well, I can't click him. Or maybe he's dead. I don't know. Anyway, so it will show you... Oh, he is dead. I must have thrashed him. Sorry, squirrel. It will show you what your threat is immediately. And then you can set it to return to whatever screen you were on beforehand. But I usually just leave it on threat unless I'm trying to see why somebody died. Usually because they stood in fire.